All right, folks. Committee will come to order. Welcome, everybody, to the February 21st meeting of the Local Government Committee. MJ, will you call the roll? Senator Stanley's here. Yes, indeed.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum?
All right, so this morning we have on our docket a number of identical bills, which you will see. And I just want to point a couple of things out. Delegate Hayes' House Bill 548 is identical to Senator Cosgrove's Senate Bill 53. However, it did not pass through this committee. It passed through Education and Health, but it passed unanimously through that committee on the floor, and then passed, and the Delegate Hayes' bill passed unanimously as well. And then we have Delegate Hope's bill, House Bill 670, which is identical to Senator Favola's Senate Bill 388, which did not necessarily get a unanimous vote. So I think what we'll do is, and everything else is unanimous and identical. So I think what we'll do is go ahead and I'll take a motion to do all of those in a block that are listed as identical bills except 670. I'll pull that out in case anybody has a contrary thought.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we take the bills on the docket identified as identical bills except for Senate Bill 670, and we will vote them in a block. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's what we'll do. So the bills are before us in a block.
Move the report.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we report the identical bills in a block. MJ, can you open the roll?
Have we done that?
Yeah, almost. Almost.
You run a tight ship.
Exactly. Aye, matey.
Ayes 13, no zero.
All right. And so those bills are reported. Now we'll take up House Bill 670, Delegate Hope's bill, which again is identical to Senator Favola's Senate Bill 388, which passed out of here 10-5 and then passed on the floor 21-19. Is there anybody to speak on House Bill 670?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There does not appear to be anyone in favor in the Zoom room.
Delegate Hope, do you want to speak to your bill?
Not if I don't need to, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anybody speak against House Bill 670?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There's no one in opposition at this time, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, and I would remind the committee that this legislation applies to Arlington County and only Arlington County.
Yeah, right. Anybody got any questions of Delegate Hope, or anybody on the committee want to say anything before we move this along?
Move the report.
Second.
Moved and seconded that House Bill 670 be reported. MJ, we open the roll for us.
Ayes 7, no 6.
All right, Delegate Hope, you're on your way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next we have a series of bills which are similar to bills that we have considered before. And Delegate Marshall, you're first in the queue.
Good morning. I like him, Mr. Chairman. Move the report.
Let's hold on just 1 second.
No. Go with it.
So I think my bill is almost the same as Senator Stanley's bill about reversion. His bill has, I think y'all put, with your wise knowledge, put a 5-year sunset. So I would ask you to do the same to my bill and report.
All right. Moved and seconded that we conform Delegate Marshall's bill to Senator Stanley's bill. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay, Senator Spruill.
Move the report this good Democratic bill.
All right, been moved and seconded that we report Delegate Marshall's House Bill 173. Open her up, MJ.
Ayes 10, noes 3.
And you have another, I believe, do you not?
No, I think it was in the list, that first list, that was identical to a bill
that's
that
right.
you had.
It was identical to mine.
272, so that's already passed.
All right,
Thank
good
y'all.
enough.
Y'all
Yes,
have
sir.
a wonderful day.
Delegate Subramaniam?
They say they have peace in the valley on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill is HB 377. So this is similar but not the same to Senator Vogel's bill. This is regarding essentially clarifying that religious nonprofits can be awarded grants whose purpose is secular in nature. The changes made from that bill to this one, essentially we reference a couple other sections of the code to make it clear that the Virginia accommodation statutes are clearly referenced, and as well as other parts of the code. But essentially, what we're trying to do here is clarify that the code is going to be in line with the Supreme Court's decision in Trinity Lutheran Church versus Comer. And there's been some confusion, I think, about this bill and really about the statute, too. There's one delegate I talked to who had 3 counties who interpreted this statute 3 different ways. And so the end result has been that it's not clear to counties whether they can make grants to religiously affiliated nonprofits, or if they do make those grants, what they have to put in place. And so this is just a clarifying statute. That's all we're trying to do here. We're just trying to reiterate that the code is in line with the Supreme Court's decision, and also that the public accommodation statutes are in place. If there's any question to that, so I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there's been some confusion about this bill.
Did you have an amendment for this, or is it already in the
It's
form?
already been amended.
Okay.
Yeah, it's.
Okay. Are there any
it's line
questions?
24 through
Any
26.
questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd ask the patron. In the bill right now, you're still using the prior words, which is appropriations. Appropriations, what is the difference between appropriations and grants?
Mr. Chair, I would tell the senator that there's grants could be grants are appropriations, but there could be other types of appropriations included as well. I think the first line of subsection A talks about appropriations of public funds or personal property or any real estate or donations. So it probably clarifies that term appropriations a little bit better.
Any other questions? Is there anybody in the audience to speak on House Bill 377?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Karen Addison with Troutman Pepper Strategies, representing Loudoun County. We want to thank the delegate for bringing the bill forward. This is round 2 from earlier in the session, and we've really worked hard with stakeholders to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the language, and ask for your support. Thank you.
Anybody else to speak on 370? This is identical to, or not identical, it's been amended from Senator Vogel's bill, but we considered the topic anyway, and I believe the delegates amended this to address a lot of the concerns that were expressed. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, I hear a voice. Oh, Delegate Hashmi. Yeah.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Hashmi,
Chair.
sorry. Thanks.
So as we saw with Senator Vogel's bill, the issue really was the entanglement of church and state, and I'm still quite concerned about those issues. I know our faith-based organizations do tremendously good work, but I'm concerned about the language. I think it's line 23, for secular purposes. Is there a definition of what secular purposes are, and how do we disentangle when a faith-based organization is working on behalf of its efforts to separate it from its religious work and the secular efforts, and what exactly are those definitions of secular purposes?
Mr. Chair, it's a good question by the senator. I would tell the senator that secular, there's a long line of case law that defines secular pretty well. And in particular, they've also defined sort of the boundaries of that pretty well. And so I think if there's any question, basically what this is also trying to do is prevent some of our localities from being sued essentially for their practices, either on either side of their interpretation. And so that's why we changed, that actually was not in the original bill by Senator Vogel, and we changed that to say secular for that very purpose, to ensure that there's actually a clear line that's delineated by this code section.
Any other questions? Senator Favola.
Well, I have a similar concern to Senator Hashmi, but I guess I'd word it differently. I mean, there are clearly some organizations that, because of their religious beliefs, are not welcoming. And even though they may not specifically ask a recipient if he or she is in the denomination of the organization granting the services, I fear that recipients would not feel welcome and wouldn't go to those organizations for the service. So, I mean, should we allow a locality to make that choice? I mean, that's really the question before us, is whether the locality should be allowed to make that choice in serving its constituents.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I would tell the senator that that's also a good point, which is why we reference the Virginia Values Act, is because that is still, applicable in situations like that. Also, just to know, we're basically just putting the code in line with what the Supreme Court already said. So, the churches can already get grants. It's mostly about, right now, some counties are saying that you follow the Supreme Court. Some counties are saying follow their interpretation of the code. So there's a lot of confusion right now, and that's all this bill is doing, is clarifying that confusion. But again, we very clearly wanted to reference those other code sections that I think would be applicable in situations like that.
Mr. Chairman, a follow-up question.
Yep, Senator Favola.
Is there a representative from Equality Virginia here? I had a note that, they were quite concerned about the last bill, so
I believe the delegate has worked with with Senator Eben on this to some degree, have you not?
I haven't. I worked with Equality Virginia specifically as well, and they didn't have any issues with this.
So, follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. So, I can conclude that Equality Virginia is comfortable with the language and believes that this is an okay strategy.
As of last week, based on the same exact language, yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Mr.
Two questions. One, couldn't an organization already give funds if they went through an RFP process to these organizations?
Yeah, I would tell the senator, I think yes, but that's not everyone's interpretation right now. For better or worse, that's not everyone's interpretation, but they could, in my opinion.
Another question, Mr. Chairman?
Senator Bell.
This microphone gets me every time. Second question, is there anything in here to prevent for instance, a board of supervisors for picking their favorite church for every one of these grants?
Yeah, I would tell the senator that, the process is really up to them. There's nothing to prevent them from doing that right now, potentially, based on the Supreme Court's decision. But, every locality has their own process. So, the answer is I'm not sure. It'd be really up to them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment and a motion. I've had some experience with this working specifically on faith-based initiatives when it became something that one of the administrations was working on, and then we developed some protocols here in the Commonwealth. It appears to me that the delegate has addressed the issues that were there with Senator Vogel's bill, so I move the bill be reported.
Second. We've got one person in the Zoom room here.
Okay.
If we just hold off on that for a second.
Right.
Can you call up Ms. Sidner?
Yes, I'm bringing her in right now, sir. Courtney Sidner, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm Courtney Sidnor with Loudoun County, and I'd like to thank the delegate for bringing the bill forward, and I appreciate the engagement and questions of the committee members. Loudoun County absolutely continues to support this bill with the amendments provided. As the delegate mentioned, one of our primary motivations here was trying to have some alignment with the Supreme Court's decision in Trinity Lutheran, and a concern that we didn't want to be discriminating against certain entities that provide the same or similar service as some of our secular or non-religious nonprofits in Loudoun County. And we have an active relationship with the nonprofit community, which we support and are very appreciative of. And so I think this only is to the benefit of that. And so I ask for the committee's support, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, Senator McPike.
Speak to the motion.
Oh, yep, go ahead.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. So I appreciate what the delegate and also Senator Vogel previously had tried to do. The problem with the way this is worded is appropriations. Nothing under a Virginia statute right now prevents any of the religious faith organizations from participating and being awarded grants. Grants have parameters of performance. Appropriations do not. Appropriations can be a direct check for $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, whatever it is. Our grant and competitive procurement process does provide for that. That is the level playing field under Virginia Public Procurement Act that we abide by. And there's a reasons why that is, because those checks can go to support, as Senator Bell pointed out, someone's favorite church of the day to the detriment of someone else's. That is the distinguishing factor of how this bill is written, and that is problematic. And it's problematic as it can be very unevenly applied across Virginia. And I think is cause for great concern. I have no problem with what we have. In Prince William County, we have great faith-based organizations who do great work. But guess what? They compete, they go through grant awards process to deliver fantastic services. But there's also performance requirements around it. That's the only thing. Those are the ties together. Once you do an appropriations, in other words, you get a direct check, all bets are off. And that's why I had concerns with the Senate version of the bill, and that's why I still have concerns with the House version of the bill. And I appreciate the patron did come by the office and talked about it and try to work through. I just don't know that this vehicle clarifies that. And one follow-up, Mr. Chairman, is no one's been sued. There's no identified actual problem yet. There's people saying, "Oh, well, we might not be able to." Well, go do it. Go push the envelope. Go, through performance. Go through grant awards and see if there's an issue. But right now, there's no issue. And so, respectfully, I can't support it as written. I understand what you're trying to get at. If there is a problem, I'm not sure that there is one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. All right, it's been moved and properly seconded that we report 377. MJ, open up the roll.
Ayes 10, noes 4.
All right. Delegate, if your friends can't roast you, who can?
So thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. A little bit of housekeeping on the similar bills. We have House Bill 277 by Delegate Coiner, and that is similar to Senator Favola's 622, but that needs to be taken a look at in Rehab and Social Services, so we'll entertain a motion to re-refer that to Rehab and Social Services. Moved and seconded that we re-refer House Bill 277 to Rehabilitation and Social Services. I think that's a recorded vote, isn't it, MJ?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's open her up. There we go.
Ayes 14, no 0.
All right, and I think last on our similar bills is Delegate Campbell's House Bill 32.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, you should have an amendment in front of you that will conform my bill to Senate Bill 294, which is Senator Deeds.
We were going to do that for you anyway. All right, been moved and seconded that House Bill 32 be conformed to Senator Deeds' Senate Bill 294. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we have the identical bill in front of us. Moved and seconded that we report House Bill 32 as amended. MJ, can you open up the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ayes 14, no zero.
All right, now we're on to some new territory here. And we've got, first up on the list, let me see, hang on a second, let me see what we've got here, is Delegate McGuire. Go ahead, Delegate.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, House Bill 60 is an economic development authority bill. The town of Louisa specifically, in the code, it says they must have 7 members of the board. But because people move and with COVID and things like that, they are out of compliance. So this bill would give them the flexibility of having 5 to 7 members of the board so they would be in compliance, be able to do the work for the town of Louisa.
Okay. Simple bill. Any questions for Delegate McGuire on House Bill 60? Anybody, well, let me see, anybody in the audience to speak in favor of House Bill 60?
If there's anybody in the Zoom room who would like to speak, please raise your hand electronically now.
Anybody here against 60? Anybody in the audience against 60?
Move to report.
Second.
All right, and nobody virtually?
There's no
Okay.
one
Been
with their hand
moved and
raised.
properly seconded that we report House Bill 60. Open the roll.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Doug Ranson, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have House Bill 167, and it's related to publicizing for meetings. House Bill 167 is related to public notification for meetings, notices, and ordinances. And many times in rural localities, we just have a weekly newspaper, and this would amend the code to state if a locality submitted all paperwork and ads in a timely fashion, but the local paper or the newspaper failed to publish the notice correctly, the locality shall be deemed to have met their requirement. We've had instances in the past where the locality sent in the ad properly and the newspaper did not publish it, or there was a mistake within the ad. And it has set back our Board of Supervisors or the school board. All of the notices went online, and they were on the radio, or they were publicly advertised in other areas, but the newspaper made a mistake.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Spruill.
I don't have the bill before me, but is there any penalty towards a newspaper who failed to properly notify everybody? I don't have the bill in front of me. So you are right. Okay, let's say you did everything like you were supposed to do, and they failed to do what they were supposed to do. Then what?
Mr. Chairman, to the Senator, the meeting had to be canceled because of that. So in the bill, what it states is that the newspaper the following week would have to publish the ad. But what the bill states is that because the locality had proof and all the documentation that they did send in the ad properly, and they were still advertising on the radio and online, they would have been deemed to have met their requirements.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Spruill.
So the newspaper would advertise the following week, and the newspaper pay for that, and not paid for by the localities, right?
Mr. Chairman, no, the locality has to pay when they put the ad in.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Spruill.
So I'm trying to find I'm trying to find out what you're trying to get at here, because the first time, let me finish. The first time you advertised everything right, and they failed to do what they were supposed to do. So they failed to, so you could be published again next week, and localities got to pay for it again. So why are you not making them do something? Say, hey, we did the requirements, we did everything right. You failed to publicize it. You had to pay us something, or either advertise the following week for free or something.
Mr. Chairman, to the Senator, so the law requires that you advertise publicly in the newspaper before you conduct your meeting. And what is happening is our boards and our school boards would have to not have their meeting because the advertisement in the paper was not put in properly.
I had one like this, I brought a bill just like this about 5 or 6 years ago, and of course, everybody thought I was trying to repeal FOIA, or something, so, yeah. It was a secret effort on my part with public notice. Anybody else on the committee? Senator Bell.
Question, are they required to post it on a website or any other place? So if that at least they would know somehow that this was happening if the newspaper did fail.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, yes, they are. And our localities also put it on the radio, that sort of thing. The issue in the rural localities is that we just have weekly newspapers. And sometimes where I live, even those weekly newspapers don't always come out. It's just, I guess, an issue where I live. Maybe in other rural areas too.
Where I live too. Senator Vola.
Well, I was just going to ask, as long as there's still a requirement that multiple mediums be used for the advertisement of a meeting, I mean, part of the reason we require the advertisement is there's statutory requirements that public hearings take place, the public be involved in the decision-making process when local government is discussing an issue or about to adopt an ordinance. And you said that all other mediums would be used, so websites, social media that the jurisdictions use or monitor or control, is that?
Mr. Chairman, to the Senator, I am in full support of making sure that the public is aware of anything that's going on within the jurisdiction. So absolutely, yes.
Mr. Chair.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like where the patron's going, but a few of the technicalities. Can you point to this code section of where it also requires the locality to publish on a website?
I might ask. Yeah.
I'm just want to make sure we're closing the loop on it.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Amy Parent-Cyber on behalf of the Virginia Press Association. We have worked with the patron on this bill, and we worked on the original version, which was with Delegate Knight, which was dealing with just the Tidewater area. Obviously, the newspapers do our very best to get the notices in the paper and get them right. If we do not get them right, then we should be responsible for printing them again. We would not charge again for them being printed, Senator Spruill. So I think that's one thing we would say. And so we would obviously print that again and make sure that notice is given. In the code under, and I don't have it right here with me, but Senator Boysko did a bill in 2019 that when we put a public notice in the paper, it's required to be on our website in front of the paywall, as well as on virginiapublicnotices.com, and that's actually in the code. So if we mess up in the actual paper, it is also going to be on the website and in that public notice website as well. So it'll be in those three mediums. It's already required to do that from the press side, so it'll be there. But this is again just for the written notice. If we mess that up, it'll be done in the next paper, and we support that and understand it. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Senator McPike.
Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
Sequentially, as I read the bill, you would publish after the actual event has occurred?
I think that's I think that might be a little bit of a question. I think the idea is that yes, it's deemed that it was, and that it would be the notice would be given again at the next notice. I mean, obviously, if we do a daily paper, it would be in the next day's paper. If it's a weekly paper, I think it would depend on the meeting and the notice that's required. So I think that's probably why it's a little bit difficult. One of the things that we're working on this year, actually, with BML and BACO, is dealing with there's about over 350 public notice requirements for meetings, and they're all different. So sometimes it's 5 days, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 7, sometimes you have to do it twice. So it is complicated. So I think that's why we can't put that specifically in here, which is why we had it drafted the way we did.
One last follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Senator McPike.
So theoretically, and I mean no harm whatsoever, just I want to make sure we understand sequentially. So some meetings that require one, literally that it could float out there and be posted after the meeting occurred.
I think technically that is correct. And because that is required that it is on that newspaper's website in front of the paywall, as well as on the public notice website, that would also, so it's still in those places as well. So I think that's the reason, but it would be put in the paper again.
All right. Anybody else on the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Yep. Senator Hashmi.
Just a question for the delegate. I'm curious if this is actually a widespread problem. I know we had the one instance that triggered Delegate Knight's original bill. Have we had instances since then of this as an issue where the announcement was missed by a newspaper?
Mr. Chairman, there was an instance in one of my jurisdictions.
And Senator Hashmi, I had one several years ago, too. And there have probably been others that I'm not aware of. But as Delegate Ranson said, it's small rural localities primarily with weeklies that run into this problem. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would just add, I guess looking to the future with many of the local, tragically, local newspapers dying around the country going out of business, I mean, I think we're going to have to think of a future when we don't have that. how we're going to provide notice. And unfortunately, that future may be coming upon us pretty quick. And I would see websites and other means are going to have to be the way of providing notice.
Anybody else? Is there anybody in the audience to speak on 167?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Mr. Lurch.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Joe Lurch, Virginia Association of Counties, and also speaking on behalf of VML. I want to thank the patron and the Press Association for working with us on this bill. Just to clarify maybe a couple of things, Senator Spruill, to your question about the cost, it wouldn't be a second bite at the apple that the locality or the applicant, in some cases in a land use decision, it would just be that one-time cost, and it would still go into the paper. Senator McPike, to your question about timing, I think in most instances it would be before the meeting, but there is, to Ms. Perrin's answer, there might be some instances where it would happen afterwards. And just another clarification, a lot of times, in most cases, localities have on their website a published notice of their full meeting docket and will have on there where there will be a public hearing. So a lot of times the citizens are relying on that. And then if there's an instance that happened in Richmond County where it was a big land use case and all the citizens showed up and were expecting it to happen and had to be told no, it couldn't, and it created a lot of confusion amongst the localities. We think this is a good measure, and we think it strikes the right balance. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience to speak in favor of 167? Anybody against 167?
If you're in the Zoom room and would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There are none at this time, Mr. Chair.
All right. Bill's in front of us.
Second that motion.
Moved and seconded that we report House Bill 167. Open the roll.
Senator Favola for Howe.
I apologize.
All right.
Thank you.
Ayes 14,
There
no
you go.
zero.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Delegate McNamara. And just so you all know, this bill has been requested by Finance. So,
thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 267 simply adds a word to the code. It allows localities the capability to return surplus real property taxes to their constituents. Currently, the code allows real estate taxes surplus to be returned, but it does not allow personal property taxes to be returned. I would say this is 100% permissive on the locality. The reason this bill sits in front of you is because we are a deal and rule state, and they are allowed to do what we allow them to do. This is no different than what we are doing as a Commonwealth. Both the Senate and the House are very anxious to return some surplus revenues we have to our taxpayers. This allows localities to do the same thing. I would also mention this is identical to Senate Bill 12, which passed the Senate 40-0. It was Senator Suderline's bill. It passed Finance unanimously as well. It probably is just as appropriate here as is in Finance because there is no fiscal impact at the state level. This is 100% voluntary at the locality level. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
any questions for Delegate McNamara on 267? All right, it's been moved and seconded.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, Senator Spruill.
If there are no physical report to go to Finance and the local council taking care of it, why are we sending it there?
Well, I got this letter from someone named Janet Howe that told me that it needed to go to, and I'll tell her you don't want to send it, but I'm gonna go ahead and send it.
I'm just speaking.
You're inclined to send it.
I'm just saying, since Finance was already met to give out all the money yesterday, and the gentleman has already said is local council take care of their own responsibility, unless they just want something to do, why we keep sending bills to Finance? They don't have to go there.
I understand. I feel your pain, but that's not a fight I'm going to fight here in local government.
I'm not sure we're going to take that on.
Be your own man, guy.
So, I think we have a motion. Did we get a motion and a second on reporting 267 and referring it to Finance? All right. Anybody else? All right, MJ, open her up.
I'm just trying to help a brother out.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Thank you, committee, and especially Senator Spruill.
Thank you.
All right, Delegate Bulova.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is House Bill 437. And I think, as most of you all know, and probably some more painfully than others, large state construction projects can have a pretty big impact on your local surrounding communities. That can include anything from traffic congestion to light and noise pollution to stormwater management. And so these are important and necessary projects, but they can have impacts on the surrounding neighborhoods. That's why they aren't subject to local zoning and subdivision ordinances. Projects that are over $500,000 in cost do have to go through a notification process to the locality, and if the locality wants, it can go ahead and request the plans for that project, and that way they can kind of weigh in on the project's consistency with the comprehensive plan and also the zoning ordinance. So it doesn't provide them any kind of veto power, but it is valuable to go ahead and make sure that that project can be a good neighbor. Mr. Chair, what this bill does, it also allows for that locality to request a meeting where the public can go ahead and engage and learn about that project and go ahead and provide their feedback. And so again, while the community wouldn't have any veto power, it is very useful to be able to understand their concerns so that reasonable adjustments can be made. And I've had this happen a couple times in my locality. I imagine many of you all have as well. Where the community finds out relatively late in the process about this project. And at that point, the die is already cast. They're not able to go ahead and provide any meaningful input. So it's not something that all localities would want to go ahead and exercise their discretion to go ahead and do it, but it just does make sure that the locality at their option can go ahead and request that state officials come out and engage the neighborhoods and go ahead and get that very, very valuable feedback. Mr. Chairman, that's what the bill does, and happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Delegate. Any questions for Delegate Bulova on 437, which passed out of the House unanimously 100-0? Any questions? Not that I'm trying to load that up for you, just asking if there are any questions.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we report House Bill 437. Open the roll.
Ayes 14, no zero.
There you go, Delegate Bulova.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
All right, let's see who's been sitting here the longest. It's between Delegate Keem and Delegate Room. Yeah, you did. You're right. You're ahead on the sign-up sheet.
We don't take winners first.
Thank you, Delegate Keem.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Good to see you all this morning. Mr. Chair, I have two bills, House Bill 700 and then 710. So I'll go in that order. House Bill 700 is what I call the Sproul effect. This is a bill that requires...
Hang on a sec. Delegate Keem, I think that went in a block.
Oh, I did? Oh,
yeah.
All right, that's fine then. It works really well with Delegate Sproul here, Senator Sproul here. House Bill 710, Mr. Chairman, is a bill that I've been working with a variety of different disability organizations as well as with some of our friends in the federal equal employment and other agencies that deal with these issues. The goal here is to try and encourage our local governments to do whatever they can to help hire more people with disabilities. We've seen, especially during the COVID crisis, that with the labor shortage, there are a lot of folks that are able to work that are just not being able to find the jobs, and so we're trying to find a way for local governments to be able to come up with some programs that will help incentivize more people with disabilities to get jobs in local governments. I know that there is at least one constituent who talked to me about this, as well as the National Federation of Blind, who might be in the room. If you choose to have a testimony, I do have a couple of people in support, but otherwise the bill came out unanimously in the House, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the committee on 710? And just in case if anybody came here to speak on this, is there anybody here? Again, it passed the House 100-0. You can't get them to agree on anything. So,
if there's anyone in the Zoom room who would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically now. There do appear to be a few. Colleen Miller, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
This passed unanimously out of the House, so very briefly, please.
I'll be very brief. Colleen Miller from the Disability Law Center of Virginia. We support the bill.
Excellent.
Stuart Prost, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Michael Beatty, I support the bill.
Okay. All right.
Move to report.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we report House Bill 710. Open the roll.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Really quickly, before I forget it, Delegate Rome, you're up next. But we have a little housekeeping. House Bill 648, Delegate Corey has requested that go by for the week. She's not able to be with us today. So is there a motion on that?
So move.
Moved and seconded that House Bill 648 go by for the week. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, by for the week. Delegate Rooms, House Bill 616.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the members of the committee. So, Mr. Chairman, HB 616, this is a two-sentence bill. This will amend the code to require that at the request of a Board of Zoning Appeals, localities consider appropriation of funding to BZAs for contracting workers, legal counsel, and other technical services. If a BZA needs funding beyond what the locality has decided, the governing body shall review the request to make a decision. And I'll just note this is not a mandate. We worked out the language. The amended version that passed the House, we worked out with VML and VACO and everything. And this is really just an issue that in Senator McPike and Senator Bell's joint area with me that we had an issue with the Prince William BZA. So we're hoping this will alleviate those concerns in a nice permissive way.
So Delegate, all you're doing is requiring them to consider.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's the legislative process for you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Okay. All right. Any questions of Delegate Rome?
Move report.
Second. All right, well, let me just check and see if is anybody in the audience to speak in favor or against House Bill 616.
If there's anyone in the Zoom room who would like to speak
in
this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Train is leaving the station here.
There are a few, Mr. Chair.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think this bill's in really good shape. So just very briefly,
Mr. Chairman, I'll note that the two people on here are members of the Prince William BZA. So I would encourage them to have a one sentence, answer there.
All right, folks.
Joseph Passanello, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Please unmute yourself and go ahead with your testimony.
Mr. Passanello, there seems to be a problem with your audio. Try muting and unmuting again.
Okay, I'm here. Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'll say briefly that I support HB 616, and I thank you for your consideration this morning.
Thank you.
Paul Chamberlain, please unmute and begin your testimony now.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Should members of a Board of Zoning Appeals have consistent access to legal counsel? Currently, they do not, if our experience is typical throughout the Commonwealth. BZAs are part of Virginia's judicial system, but BZA members are not necessarily lawyers. Lacking a legal background, a member may not understand certain highly nuanced legal arguments by a contending party or know how to handle a potential conflict of interest. In theory, a member may seek advice from the governing body attorney. In practice, however, this is not feasible if the governing body attorney is a party to a case before the BZA. This happens often. On balance, BZA members do not have consistent access to legal counsel. HB 616 proposes a mechanism to redress this shortcoming. As a BZA member since 2013 and chair since 2018, I believe any measure to help BZA members gain consistent access to legal counsel would further help the member gain appropriate knowledge and best prepared to adjudicate cases wisely. Please support HB 616. Thank you.
Thank you.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Move to report. Second. Been moved and properly seconded that we report 616. Open the roll.
Ayes 14, no zero.
He put you over the top, Delegate Rome.
Thank you.
I think I'm looking out in the audience. There's nobody left in here, and I think it looks like on my sheet here we've completed the docket. So unless there's anything else with that, I'm sorry, Senator Sproul.
Do you have to be a lawyer to understand something?
Yes.
So you're not a lawyer, so you're not a lawyer, you can't understand. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that.
All right, with that, we are adjourned.